Hello, everyone. Welcome back. And today in this video, I have a very special guest, Mr. Michi. Thank you so much for joining us. And we're going to talk about Barcelona. And I'm sure you can see from the title of this video, that we're going to talk about the expectations that we have for Hansi Flick's first year in charge of Barcelona. But Michi, first off, thank you very much for joining. I really appreciate you being on, and I'm very excited to talk today.
Hey Gibson, I appreciate you for having me on your channel, man. Your growth has been fantastic, bro, and I can't wait for this, man. There's a lot of things that I'm looking forward to in this up and coming year. I'm scared, but also excited. But hopefully we can have like a little therapy session here. Two Barca fans
Exactly,
just kind
man.
of
Yep.
talking about it,
All
and then
back
we
and
can
forth
a
into
little
the
back and
champions.
forth, and then we'll see what the Flickinator has in store for us.
Yes, I hope so, man. I'm excited. And if you haven't already, if you don't know who Michi is, please go check out his channel. I mean, his content is amazing right now. He's at 10K and deservedly so. I'm sure he's going to be at 50, 100K very soon. So please check out his channel if you don't know him already. But yeah, we can get into this and talk about the expectations. I just have some questions down that I wanted to talk about. But I guess the first thing that I wanted to ask are what are your expectations for the rest of this transfer window? And we talked in your video about Dani Olmo and about some of the other signings that we could potentially see this transfer window. But what else do you expect from Barcelona and Deco if we can't really expect that much from him? I know a lot of Barca fans are feeling pretty negative about the Dani Olmo signing. So what are your expectations for the rest of Barcelona's transfer window? What do you think they can do?
Honestly, I'm not very optimistic about anything else anymore because the club hasn't really given me any reason to be optimistic about anything. I feel like Barca right now are in a point where, we've heard from Flick multiple times already. Flick comes out every day and says he's very impressed with the X player. Shit, sorry, that was not me farting, by the way. There's thunder here in Florida, so so Flick comes out and talks every single week on Twitter. I feel like I see he's very impressed. He came out and said he was impressed with Lenglet. You know what I mean? So it's just I think the dude's just talking maybe to the media, but obviously he trusts a lot of the La Masia players, and we saw it with the trust that he put in them in the preseason. So I think that Barca are going to rely on the youth. Now, is it a strategy that I'm particularly fond of? No, because I feel like while I do love Barca's youth, and I do love the fact that there's so many young promising players in La Masia, not just like Pabito, who's not from La Masia, and Pedri, who's obviously not from La Masia. There's promising players all around Barca's squad that are young, obviously under the age of 21, 20, who still have a long career ahead of them. But we saw with Ansu Fati a lot of times, Barca put so much pressure on these youngsters, it kind of derails their career. Now I think that Barca are already relying, apologies, on a lot of youngsters, like Lamine Jamal, most notably, and Pau Cubarsí and Fermin Lopez. But again, I think Barca are in a point right now where they made their big money signing, their like marquee signing. They got Dani Olmo, the guy who scored in the semifinal of the Euro, the guy who was really good for Spain. So I don't really expect Barca to do anything else. I would love for them to sign a pivot. I would have loved Subimendi. I would have loved, at this point, Amadou Onana even, but he ended up going, I think, to Aston Villa.
Yeah.
But again, Mikel Merino, I don't think he's gonna come. He's gonna go to Arsenal.
Mm.
I wanted another midfielder. I wanted a winger. I just don't think it's gonna happen. Maybe we bring in Kingsley Coleman on loan. I don't know what your thoughts are about the Joao's, Felix, and Cancelo. We still are yet to hear from them.
Yeah.
I'm personally not too fond of Joao Felix. I think he's better off going to Villa with Unai Emery and maybe experimenting once again in the Premier League. Joao Cancelo is a guy who I just got really turned off by him in the second half of the year last year with his performances and the way that he was just coming up small and stinking up the pitch. Most notably against PSG, Girona, he was terrible, and against Real Madrid, those three games, three of the
I
biggest
know.
games of our season, he was awful in all three of them. So again, to make a long yapping session shorter, I don't expect anything from Barca honestly because I think that they already with the financial if Barca were Man City, then you could say you go out and sign this guy, you go out and sign that guy. But with the financial situations that Barca have, unless we go out and sell a player for big money, I think we're going to go into the first game against Valencia with the squad that we have now and hoping for some guys in the margins. But do I expect another big name? I do not.
Yeah. Yeah, the great point too. Onana went to Aston Villa for 50 million. Zubamendi, he might be off to Liverpool, which it seemed impossible for Barcelona to bring him this summer, but I guess the Premier League excites him more possibly for 60 million. Yeah, those signings potentially that 50 million that you spent or the 60 million that you spent for Dani Olmo definitely could have been used in that position. But I guess it wasn't. And Mikel Marino as well was a name linked to Barca, but seems
Yep.
like he's joining Arteta at
Arsenal.
Arsenal, and I guess I understand that. But yeah, I'm in agreement with you. I think both of us are kind of also that Nico Williams, guessing that he's staying at Bilbao, unfortunately, would have been such a good signing, but just doesn't seem like it's going to happen. And so, yeah, I'm with you on that. I don't really think that Barca would sign another big name. I mean, if at the end of the transfer window they try and sign Cancelo and Felix on loans again, I'm not going to be excited by that. Like you said, I think Cancelo in the first half of the season he was great, but you want players that step up in the biggest moments. And Cancelo in the most important games for Barca, I think it was like the 3 week span that you talked about where Barca they went out of the Champions League. He was horrible in that game against PSG. I will never understand that tackle that he had on Dembele, the edge of the box, going nowhere, took him out, penalty. Basically, I mean, then Barca couldn't get back at that point. And then also against Madrid, I think he got beat 3 times, the back post, and then Girona as well. Just lost Barca the league. So yeah, I just
Yep.
don't think maybe that's a player that Barca should go and spend 10 to 20 million on, or potentially just get on loan again. I just don't think that's the best idea, like you said. But yeah, I guess moving into that, how do you think Barcelona will line up, given the fact that Dani Olmo, he might be the only signing? And I know with Hansi Flick, we've seen that 4-2-3-1. And like you said, I think he's giving a lot of trust to La Masia players, which is great to see. But how do you think Barcelona will line up? I know at the beginning of the season, they're going to have players like Pedri, Frankie de Jong. Who else is injured? I mean, Gavi, of course, is injured for probably,
Araujo.
yeah, Araujo injured for, yeah, 4 to 6 months. So how do you think Barcelona will line up in the first month of the season with these players out injured?
I think it's gonna obviously, like you said, it's gonna depend a lot on the injuries that Barca have, and there's obviously a lot like Araujo, Frankie De Jong, and Pedri. They're gonna miss games every year. You got to pencil it in. They're gonna miss games every single year, despite being three of our most talented players. You can honestly argue those three on paper are three most talented players, like in terms of just like pure ability, but they're always hurt. So again, if I'm thinking about a full strength lineup, that's different. But the question that you asked, how do I think Barca is going to line up against Valencia on the 17th? I think obviously you're going to have Ter Stegen in goal because, love him or hate him, he's better than Iñaki Peña. So you're going to have
Yep.
Ter Stegen. He's just going to be in there. He might have a master class or he might stick up the pitch. I
Yeah.
don't know. Maybe those hair transplant hairs sometimes just like
True.
fucking
True.
mess with his hair, mess with his head a little bit.
Yeah.
But he's well, Ter Stegen at right back. There's no debate about it. It's Jules Koundé, to me the
Yep.
best defensive right back in the world, one of the best defensive right backs in world football. I know he likes playing better at center back. Sorry, bro, you're better
He's
at
too
right back.
good.
So
Yeah,
you're
he's
gonna
too
play at
good at
right
right
back.
back.
Yeah, center backs, it's got to be Kuwarsi and it's got to be Christensen, in my opinion. Inigo Martinez is a good option as well. Mikkel Fai looks like he's off to, I forget which team, but he's off to another team. I
Twins or
think,
Monaco.
yeah,
Yeah.
Monaco. I think
Yeah.
one of those teams. But it looks like, I would love to see Mikkel Fai get some playing time, but he's obviously
Yeah.
going to leave. But I think Kuwarsi and Christensen are going to be the two, and I'm pretty confident. I'm pretty comfortable with those two guys at center back. I think both of them are really, really good. At left back, you have Hector Fort, you have Alejandro Walde, you have Valle who can play there as well, who had a really, really good preseason in my opinion, but defensively he's not great. I think you have to trust because obviously Valle can play on either side. Hector Fort can play on either side. Hector Fort is he's better at right back, but he can play either side. But I think it's gotta be Alejandro Walde, who I think is a profile that Hansi Flick really likes, and because he kind of has that Davies mold in him, where he's very fast, very he's very he can put pressure on a back line coming over from that left hand side. So I think that he's going to be on the left. Then the midfield, if we're setting up in a 4-2-3-1, it's weird because from the lineups that I'm seeing so far that people are like kind of rumoring out there for Valencia, they have Bernal and Casado as the two pivots.
Yep.
That's not something that I'm too fond of personally because I think it's so much youth and so much inexperience in a first Liga game. Again, I trust them, and I think that's the best way to like help them grow. But it's a lot to ask for those two kids. So I think Barca are going to go with maybe Gundogan and Bernal in a double pivot. Then you can probably put Dani Olmo at the 10 because I think Dani Olmo will start in his first game. But once Pedri's healthy, I would actually put Pedri at the 10, depending on how Dani Olmo plays until Pedri comes back. So I would have that. I would have Gundogan, Bernal, and then I would have Dani Olmo because I just think Casado right now, he's too. If you looked at, I don't know if you like. Obviously, you probably watched the preseason games, but Casado is just too. It's his size. He's just not there yet, man. Like Bernal is just built. He's built. He's tall. He's strong on the ball. So I think that he gives me a little bit more confidence. Again, like I said, Gundogan, Bernal, and then Dani Olmo as the three midfielders. Then on the wing on the left, I gotta have Rafinha because he's if we're not gonna sign a left winger, he's our best option over there. I think he proved throughout times last season that on the left, he could have a lot. He could be very, very, very effective, like we saw against PSG and Madrid and those games. On the right, it's Lamine Jamal. That's the guy. He's gonna be the guy for the next 15 years. He's gonna be on that right wing for Barca. Cannot wait to see how that kid plays. I cannot wait to see how his career plays out. Honestly, I'm so excited about it. And then up top, you know, like he's probably doing
So
the
loud.
renegade. He's probably doing the renegade right now as we speak. He's probably filming some
Oh
thirst
yeah,
traps
the
on
TikTok
TikTok.
guy.
It's
Yeah.
gotta be Lewa, bro. Look, me personally, I would honestly start Paul Victor or Victor Roque because I really, guys, if you again, I'm here on Gibson's channel. If you guys are not familiar with me, let's just say I'm not the biggest Lewandowski fan. Just to put it nicely. But I know Hansi Flick is gonna end up starting Lewa, so I think Lewa is gonna be up top, and I think that's a decent lineup. I guess I think a team like Valencia, who's been who's obviously historically big for like in La Liga, but has been pretty relevant over the past couple of years. I think Barca can go and get a win with that lineup, and I think that Hansi Flick can coach them right.
Yeah. Yeah, I like what you said about Casado as well because the double pivot, I know we're seeing a lot of Casado and Bernal, and that's what we saw in preseason, and I think it did look good. But I think just having two players without that experience, I just think it might hurt Barcelona. There were some moments in that game against City and Madrid. I just don't feel like they were really showing to the ball that much.
Yep.
And I think off the ball, Casado is great. I think he does remind me of Gavi in that way that he's always trying to win the ball in a difficult area of the pitch. It's great to have him, but yeah, I just think starting Casado and Bernal, especially in the first month of the season, I think that both of them can get minutes, but I just don't know together. Maybe it might just be lacking a little bit of experience, and especially with Gundogan coming back at the start of the season, you have a feeling that he's going to be starting. But yeah,
Yep.
Lewandowski, I'm in agreement as well because I know a lot of people, I'm sure, that don't really watch Barca play that much. You see, he scored 20 goals last season. You're thinking, oh,
Yep.
this is probably one of Barca's best players.
Pichichi, he was in the Pichichi race.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, no, but I enjoy watching the game with my eyes, and what we saw last season was not good. Like, I just think every single time he's just slowing up the attack. And Pau Victor in that game against City, that was the only time he played as a number 9. Other times he was playing on the right. I think he looked great. I
yep.
think his movement there, it was so different. I mean, honestly, I think I got my joy back for the sport again, just watching a number 9 actually make runs in behind and have great little passes and layoffs. It was just so nice to watch. But like you said, against Valencia, hopefully Barca can, be able to get a result in that game. And of course, like you said, I think Pedri, Gabi, Frankie de Jong, Araujo, I mean, that's the core of the team, I would say.
Yeah,
So
literally
it's
the core.
difficult to be, yeah,
Yeah.
it's difficult to be missing them. I'm guessing for at least a month. I feel like out of those 4, the first to be back would probably be Pedri. Like you said in your video, I mean, I haven't seen Frankie de Jong. I have no clue. He could be out for a couple more months. I have no clue. So
We have no idea
I
where
don't
he's at.
know. Yeah. And with Gavi as well, I know he's back in training with the ball. So that's nice to see. But yeah, I think players like Bernal and Casado, they can get minutes. But Bernal, like you said, I'm very interested in him. I think that build that he has is great. I mean, he's just the left foot. I know a lot of people talk about Busquets because he's just lanky, but I think on the ball he just looks so composed and calm, and he
Yep.
was showing. I think he was great. So yeah, that's all great. And speaking of a number 9, I wanted to talk a little bit about the Vitor Roque situation because I just think it's such a terrible look. And not only is it bad for Vitor Roque's confidence himself, but I mean, think about other Brazilian players, other players from different leagues that, of course, dream about playing for Barcelona. What do you think their thoughts are on this Vitor Roque situation? How do you think Deco has handled it? And I mean, where do Barcelona go from here?
Honestly, and I'm not trying to be hyperbolic when I say this, I think it's been one of the biggest disasters that I've ever had to sit through as a Barca fan because Victor Roque, if you watched him at the Brasileirão, which is, look, I'm a big fan of South American football. Obviously, if you guys don't know, I'm from South America, so I've been watching South American football my whole life. It's something that I love to watch. I watched Victor Roque in Brazil. He was one of the most promising youngsters in the Brazilian league. That's a fact. No one can debate that. That is a fact. If you go back and look at what people were saying about Roque when he was playing in Brazil, he was on he was on the same level as Endrick. He was like that promising. A lot of big teams in Europe wanted him. And the reason I think Barca signed Roque because they saw that Real Madrid signed Endrick and they kind of wanted to compete. It was kind of like an arms race. You sign Endrick, we sign Roque.
Mm-hmm.
And I was happy about it because I was like, oh my God, this kid is a stud. He's very, very strong on the ball. He's got good finishing. He's very physical. His work rate is very, very good as well. If you watch him play, Vitor Roque is always pressing.
Yeah.
I think what we've done with him has been it's been malpractice, honestly. And I understand that Xavi didn't want to play him, but for me, the biggest thing for me is this. If you had 2005 Milan up top, if you had Inzaghi and Crespo, as your striker partnership, I understand not playing the kid. I get that. You know what I mean? Because you have 2 great strikers. You have Lewandowski and who else? Gil is gone. He's gone to Chelsea. He's left. He's left. Bye-bye. Like, he's not here anymore. So you're putting all your trust in a 35 or whatever Lewandowski. Like, what are we doing here? I don't understand the thinking behind that. And I understand that Xavi didn't want him. And everybody's like, oh, but Hansi Flick and Xavi watched him in practice. They know more than us. Bro, he's 18 years old.
Yeah.
He can still grow. You got to give him time. Vini wasn't the player that he is now when he first got to Madrid. I remember watching Vinicius Jr. He was not what he is now. Imagine just giving up on the guy. Oh, bye. We're going to sell you. We're going to sell you to the Saudi League at 18. Like, what are we doing here, bro? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. And again, for me, it's so frustrating because the options that we have up top are just not reliable. I can't, like, how are we going to rely? Like, Lewandowski, set aside the fact that he's terrible. He can get injured. He got injured last year. You know what I mean? Against Porto. I remember that game. He got injured against Porto, and he was out for a couple games. So once he's hurt, who's your choice? You're going to play Ferran up top, Joao Felix up top? Those are going to be your 2 options. Good luck with that. Good luck competing with Mbappe and Vini with Joao Felix and Ferran Torres. That's gonna go great for you. So again, for me, do I think Roque is the second coming of R9? Absolutely not. But again, we haven't seen it, so no one knows what he is. Nobody knows what he is. And I think in the games that he played, especially when he first started to get playing time in January, I think that he looked really, really good. And when I see him in preseason, you see a guy who's fighting for a spot on the team, who's actually trying to give it his all for the badge. And you brought this great point up with Rafinha in my video, not to spoil it, but you said that Rafinha is a guy who plays for the badge. And I think Roque is that type of mold. I think he's that same mold of player who you see him on the pitch and you see that he's pressing. You see that he's trying to do stuff. You see that he's working off the ball. And a lot of times we have players who don't do that. So again, I know that Flick and Xavi watched him in training, and I saw a report that he doesn't play the rondo that well. Give me a fucking. But sorry, I don't mean to. Can we curse on your
Oh,
channel?
yeah. You're
Sorry,
good.
sorry, because give
No,
me
no,
a
no.
fucking break. Give me a
Yeah,
fucking break, bro. Come on, the
yeah,
rondo. Are you kidding me?
yeah,
That's what we're gonna do now. We're judging players based on the rondo.
yeah.
Like, come on, that to me is inexcusable. So again, I think that the whole Vitor Roque situation, not only have you shattered the kid's confidence, but you're basically like, what are we doing with him? Like, he's a guy who can still play. And I hope that he actually, like, I hope that he doesn't resent us now. Like, he doesn't resent
I
Barca. I know
know.
he wants to stay, which I'm happy about. I know, like, with all this, he still wants to stay.
Yeah,
So I'm happy. And I think that this whole thing about he's got to, like, what are we doing? Like, you know what I mean? Like, and especially when you see what Atletico Madrid are doing with Julian, and, you know, they signed Sorloth, I think,
yeah.
as well.
Sorloth. Yeah, I forgot his name. Yeah,
Like they're building, and when you look at the big teams in the Liga, they have those goal scorers up top. And again, we have a washed Lewandowski. So again, I think the whole Roque situation has been completely mishandled, and I think it's something that it shows why Barcelona have been such a mess
yeah,
over the past couple years, because no one in this club is on the same page. Because if Deco knew that Xavi didn't like the profile of Vitor Roque, why the hell are you bringing him in?
yeah,
Why are you bringing him in? Why is he a part of your team? You know what I mean? Like if manager doesn't want him, then just don't bring him in,
yeah,
and let some other club deal with him. But
yeah.
now that you've brought him in, you want to sell them after 6 months without getting barely any playing time. Again, if we would have seen Roque, even if we would have seen Roque every game for 6 months and he was terrible, that's still too premature to sell him.
Yeah,
It's still too premature.
exactly.
Even if you would have seen him every game, it's still too premature, because you can't arrive to a conclusion about a player in that short amount of time, especially when he's coming over from a new league in a different continent that's 8 hours away.
Yeah,
So for me, again, I get really passionate about this for all of, as you guys can tell. I'm usually
yeah.
not like this, but it is something that frustrates me a lot, because I do think that Barca have completely mishandled this young kid, and he's a guy who I still believe has a lot of promise, and he shows that every time he's on the pitch, quite frankly.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you. I'm also very passionate about it. I mean, one of my friends asked me about Vitor Roque. He just texted me. He said, "Is Vitor Roque going to Saudi Arabia?" And I just started like a voice message, and I ended it at 8 minutes long. So I just ranted, just
Yeah,
yapped the entire time, because it's just so frustrating. And I don't understand the squad planning. There's just a disconnect between Deco and the coach, because why would you rush him in January? And then Xavi obviously didn't seem like he wanted to play him. And to this day, Vitor Roque has gotten one start in an official game as the number 9, and that was with a midfield of who else? Oriol Romeu, Sergio
yep.
Roberto, and Fermin Lopez.
Against Las
The
Palmas.
midfield. Yeah,
Yeah,
yes, that's the midfield that he got, and he got subbed out at 60 minutes. Yes, he didn't maybe have the best performance in that game. Did he really get that good of an opportunity? That's the only time he's played and started as a number 9, and I really don't know where it went wrong, because I think in the games that he came on as a substitute, that goal that he scored that won Barca the game, I don't remember the. It was that Cancelo Travella cross, and he
oh,
had.
in the Copa del Rey, I think it was Barbastro, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, yeah, that game, whatever it was, so good, and I thought he was great. I think the runs that he made was great, and sometimes he would get a one-on-one and maybe just not have the right shot. It would be a good save from the keeper, but honestly, that's what you want. I want a player that's in on goal, and Lewandowski. I mean, we don't really see him in on goal that often, because he's just not making runs, and I just think he's doing this like playmaker gimmick where he tries to drop back and dictate the play. You're not that guy. Like, I would get in the box if I were you. I would know your strengths. And Vitor Roque, to know your strengths, I think Vitor Roque doesn't know them at all, because he's not being utilized in the way that
Right.
showcases his talent. Because when you're like Hansi Flick was doing, he was playing him as a left winger, which I don't maybe think it was necessarily Hansi Flick's fault, because Pau Victor obviously looked like he deserved that start. But Vitor Roque, as a number 9, I think he's great. Like you said, he looked like such a promising player in the Brazilian league. He was scoring goals for fun, and you want someone that's a fox in the box, that's making runs. Like you said, he's working so hard off the ball. That's what you want. And I just think in those couple games that we saw before he got that red card, I think he looked very promising. And then he got that bogus red card after he scored another good goal in that game. And then he wasn't seen again, honestly. Like, it was maybe got 10 to 15 minutes in that left wing position at the end of the game. That was the opportunities that Vitor Roque got. So I just think it's ridiculous the way that they've handled that situation. And some, like you said, some Barca fans maybe will talk about, oh, if Xavi and Hansi Flick both see them, maybe there's something that they see that we don't. But like you said, even if he was playing every single minute for 6 months in a new league, it's not enough time to give him a true opportunity. And with Vinicius, you brought up that example. Is he going to turn into the player that Vinny is right now? Probably not. But do you want to give him that opportunity? If Madrid is a serious club, the way that they operate, you have to applaud it, honestly, because Vinicius, they gave him those opportunities, and he flourished. Now he's one of the best players in the world. And if Vinny signed for Barca, I mean, maybe, would they have tried to ship
They
him
would have
off?
sold him. They would have
Yeah,
sold him right away.
yeah,
Yeah.
he'd be in the Saudi Arabian league right now.
Yeah.
So I mean that's the difference, I think, and it's just difficult because I could talk so much about Barcelona's board, and I think what we saw with what Bartomeu was doing, I think we knew during that time that it was just leading us down a terrible route. I think the tipping point, well, for me, there was so much, but that Pjanic and Arthur deal, that 60 million, I mean, I just don't know what they were doing. And I'm not saying it's the same exact thing now. I think Laporta has done a great job to get Barca's financial situation back into place. But I just think Deco, I don't understand the sporting direction that he's taking the club because, I mean, he's missed out on so many greats. I mean, Lucas Bergwall looks promising, went to Spurs. Mokio signed for Ajax. Arda Güler, of course, signed for Madrid. I think if there was a serious sporting director, Arda Güler, he might actually be at Barcelona right now, which would have
Yep.
been a great signing for around 20 million. But the only like signing that Deco has backed and made was 30 to 60 million for Vitor Roque, and now you're not even giving him an opportunity. So Deco, you got to be asking serious questions about him, and I think all Barca fans think the same way.
100% agree. And I think for me, when I look at, I think like you said, the best example is the rivals, man. They know how to they scout their players and they know how to get these gems and they actually know how to develop them. And I think with Barca, a lot of times we rely so heavily on La Masia, which is a good thing, but we forget that there's youngsters all over the place. There's like football academies literally in every single corner of the world, and you can find these gems and you can find these players who can one day become or develop into being all-time greats. And I think for me, when I look, I think, and I've said this multiple times, I think the appointment of Deco and letting go of Jordi Cruyff and Matteo Alemany, if you guys remember, Matteo Alemany and Jordi Cruyff were the ones who kind of had that winter transfer window when Xavi first got in, where they brought in Ferran, they brought in Adama Traore on loan. What?
Yeah. Aubameyang too. Yeah.
Aubameyang, exactly. Yeah. Like that was a masterclass in my opinion because it actually helped Barca become a. And I know Barca tailed off towards the end of that year, but there was like a 2-month stretch, beating Napoli, beating Atletico Madrid, beating Valencia, where we're scoring 4 goals for fun. Yeah. And I think since they left and we're seeing what Deco is doing now, last transfer window to me was disappointing as well. It was just a disappointing transfer window. Like you have players that come to you on a free because you're Barcelona like Gundogan, but your only signing was Oriol Romeo from Girona for 3.5 million.
Yeah.
So again, I understand, and look, I don't want people to think that we're ignorant to this. We understand that Barca's financial situation is not the best. But again, your job as a sporting director, you wanted the job. No one put a gun to Deco's head and said, you got to take this job. Yeah. You wanted the job. You understand you understood what this job came with when you took the position. So learn how to scout these players and maybe get them for cheap. What's that guy's name? Messinho, the one that's going to
Estevao.
Estevao, yeah, like dude. Or even Kendi Paez, who's fantastic in my opinion. Like all these kids, who again are more well known now, but you gotta have I think Barca's scouting department has to be better and not rely so much on La Masia because there's youngsters all over the place. But yeah, I think Deco, we have to start asking serious questions about him. Can I ask you a question? I don't mean to hijack your channel. I just want to ask you.
Yeah, please.
Because last year was obviously, I think we can both agree, a very disappointing season for Barca. What to you this season with Hansi Flick? What do you as a Barca fan? Okay, we know obviously the transfer window is not over yet. We still have some to come. But to you, what would be if me and you, Gibson and Michi, we're sitting here next year in May, we're making this video again towards the end of the year. What would have to happen for you to say, you know what, I'm happy with the way the season went? Is it winning the UCL? Is it winning La Liga? Is it winning both? God, oh my God, please, Lord. One day maybe we'll see it again. What has to happen for you to actually believe for you to actually think that Barca had a successful year under Hansi Flick, given the circumstances of everything that's going on with the club right now?
Yeah, great question. I think it's difficult because we know how good. I mean, Madrid were so dominant last year. I mean, they, like you said, I think they only lost 2 games. I think you said that in the last video. Yeah, they only lost maybe 2 games that entire season, and then they just added the best player in Europe. So is it going to be difficult for Barcelona to compete in La Liga? Yes. Also, Atletico Madrid, they've had a great transfer window. I mean, the Scott Gallagher, or not Scott Gallagher, they're Conor Gallagher signing.
Conor Gallagher, Lenormand.
Yeah, Lenormand, who I think looked good at the Euros. And then
Orlov,
Julian Alvarez, Sorloth. Yep. That's a great transfer window. I mean, those are the gaps that they wanted to fill. They're taking kind of the old guard and they're replacing it with new and fresh players. That's great. Of course, Real Madrid's transfer window, adding Mbappe, I think that can always be a great transfer window.
That's what team that already won the UCL.
They won the double last year, and that the only thing they didn't win was the Copa del Rey, and they just added the best player in Europe. So is it going to be difficult for Barcelona to win La Liga? I believe so. I'm not my expectations. I just hope that Barca and Hansi Flick, they regain some identity. That's honestly the first priority for me. I know a lot of people, of course, trophies are very important as well. But for me, I just think Barca, they looked so lost under Xavi. I think there were so many games, even when Barca won 1-0, they scraped a 1-0 win. I just think I was always asking the question. I mean, what's the game plan? What's the way that they want to play? I didn't even understand it. I didn't recognize the way that the club wanted to play. Hansi Flick, I hope he implements a game plan where we can actually recognize what he wants to do, where he can get the best out of his players. And just talking about La Liga, do I think that Barca can go in and win the treble next season if their only signing is Dani Olmo this summer? No. I think if Nico Williams joined the club, I think I would have higher expectations for La Liga, especially. But just looking at the squad right now, if they make no more signings, I do think the squad is good enough to compete in La Liga. I think it maybe wouldn't be a win, to be completely honest. I'll be blunt. I think the favorites for everyone would be Real Madrid, but I still think Barca. I still believe in the club right now, and I think La Masia, they have some gems in that academy. Hansi Flick in preseason has looked promising. So can they go win La Liga? Absolutely, I think they can. It's going to be difficult, but Barca, if they're at their best, I think they can compete against anyone. But we're just going to have to wait and see if Hansi Flick can get the best out of the team. But I mean, for La Liga, they're not favorites, but I still think that they can win. I mean, in the UCL, it's going to be difficult. But like last season, I think under Xavi, they were literally 2 games away from getting to the final. Who knows what would have happened in that game? You know, Araujo, I don't want to, poor guy, I don't want to just blame it on him and bring that up. But I mean, that mistake was the reason, in my opinion, that they did not make it to the UCL final. I think they could have went and competed against Dortmund, beat them in both legs, and then we could have seen a Clasico in the final, which would have been so amazing to watch. But that just didn't happen. I think my expectations for me, more than any of the trophies that we could win, I just want Barcelona to have some identity again and to just get back to the exciting way that they want to play. Because I mean, I fell in love with the way that they played, not the trophies that they won. So I think for me, it was that's more important. But I understand trophies are very important as well because it showcases that you were the best team in the league or the best team in Europe if you win the Champions League. So yeah, for me, I do think they can compete against anyone, but I'm not expecting them to win a treble. I do think hopefully they can get a trophy next season. I don't know what your thoughts are. Your expectations for next season would be.
I think everything you said is 100% correct, and I agree with it. I think for me though, it's weird because it's a blessing and a curse being Barcelona because Barcelona have never won. Every year they won the UCL, they won the league along with it. Barca have 5 UCLs every single year. When if you want to go back to 92, 06, 09, 11, 2015, all 5 UCLs, Barca won the league and the UCL. So when Barca win the UCL, it's usually because they have a dominant team. Barca don't just go like they don't have a year where they just win the UCL and win no other trophies. That's very rare for Barca. Usually they win both. So again, it's a blessing and a curse because it shows that Barca, when they're great, they're really, really good. But when they're shit, they're really, really like they're not quite there.
Yeah.
So for me, when I look at Barca, I think Hansi Flick is a very promising manager, and I love the verdict. I love the game plan that I saw. I love this intensity. I was honestly one of the people that was Xavi out. And I was look, I don't like the way that he left, but I'm happy that he's gone now, and I'm really excited to see what Hansi Flick has in store. I think if last season would have been a little bit better, I would come into the season and say, you know what, it's a project with Hansi Flick. He's going to be here for hopefully the next 5 whatever years. Hopefully he's one of the bars. He's a Barca legend at some point, like Luis Enrique and like Pep. But for me, after last season and that embarrassment that it was, because it was embarrassing to me as a fan. I don't know about you, but to me, I felt embarrassed watching that team at times last year. You brought up a great point about the 1 goal. We won 3 months, I think that the stat is, without beating it by over 1 goal. And I remember after those Antwerp and Betis games in mid-September, the team was awful. January was one of the most painful things I've ever seen as a Barca fan. The loss to Bilbao, the loss to Villarreal, the loss in the Super Cup final. It was just sad to watch. It was honestly depressing to watch. So for me, again, if that wouldn't have happened, I would come into the season maybe being a little bit more lenient. But I need to see a trophy this year. I need to see Barcelona win a trophy. Again, it's like the Super Cup will be great, especially if you beat Madrid. But to me, it's got to be one of the big 3. And, for me, again, am I saying that Barca, if we win the Copa del Rey and get to a UCL semifinal, I would be happy. If we win La Liga, again, I'm not asking for trouble here because that's unrealistic. And you obviously brought up the points, great points about Atletico Madrid and Real Madrid and their transfer window and their business so far have been amazing. I mean, again, Madrid added Mbappe to a team that won the double last year, a treble, and a Mickey Mouse treble, because we know Madrid can actually win the treble. They can't actually win the treble, but they added Mbappe to that team. So, but again, for me, I have enough faith in Hansi Flick. I don't know if I made a video on my channel, 5 bold predictions for Barca this up and coming year. Shameless plug. And in that video, I said that I think Barca are going to finish La Liga with over 90 points, 90 or more points. It's been since 2017, 2018 since Barca did that. The first year with Valverde. It's been a good amount of time. But I think that Barca can't finish the league with over 90 points. And I think, again, does that mean they're going to win it? No, because Madrid might finish with 100 points, because they're so fucking good.
Yeah.
But I do think that Barca have to have a season where they look sharp. They looked sharp, and a lot of times under Xavi, I felt like the team looked sluggish. They looked asleep, especially coming out of halves. But again, it's exactly what you said. If the football is there, I think Barca fans can buy into it. Last year, the reason why I didn't buy into it is because the football wasn't there. Like the football just wasn't there with Xavi. Like it got good at points, but for the most part, it was really underwhelming. Like the final third creation was non-existent. In transition, again, I understand that you don't have a pivot. That's not an excuse to lose to Granada, to tie against Granada. That's not an excuse to lose that badly to Villarreal. That's not an excuse to struggle against third division teams in the Copa del Rey, which we did, by the way. People forget that we did struggle against them.
Yeah.
So again, for me, I think that Hansi Flick has to win a trophy. I would love to see Barca lift the trophy once again because we're not, me and you, we're not supporting Bournemouth here. People are always like, oh, you're so ungrateful. Brother, this is not Bournemouth. Like, we're not supporting Aston Villa or Spurs. You're supporting Barcelona. Like, if you're a Barca fan, your standards should be trophies, and you shouldn't lower your standards for anything because that is the basis of in which this club was built. Success. So if you're a Barca fan, you should not be expecting anything else. Again, am I saying that we have to, like, if they don't win a trophy, we have to go in there with pitchforks and fucking kick everybody out of the club? No. You got to see the football as well. If the football is there, but there's no trophies, you kind of like, you say, okay, Real Madrid had a really good team. We can get them next year. But again, we have to hold this club to a high standard because that's what it's supposed to be. It's Barcelona. So again, I think for me, it's got to be a trophy, but I echo what you said as well. When it comes to the football, it's got to be somewhat aesthetically pleasing to watch, which I don't think we've seen at Barcelona. Aesthetically pleasing football in a very long time, if you ask me. And I watch a lot of Barca games.
Yeah, I agree with all of that too. Yeah, and the standard for Barca, I think it's just after all of the stuff that's happened at Barca, I think maybe, like you said, it's just gone down a little bit where you're like, oh, maybe I just won a Copa del Rey or something like that. Honestly, it'd be so nice to see Hansi Flick get a trophy in the first season. That would be great. And I know a lot of Barca fans, they talk about, or I think a lot of fans are saying Barca are so scared about Madrid. I mean, Barca's going to play Madrid twice. That's the guaranteed amount. And then they might play in the Super Cup. But that's it. So, I mean, and I think Barca, historically, they've gone up against Madrid very well. And I think, at least from when I've been watching them, I think they do combat against each other very well. They've always make for exciting games. The Super Cup final against Madrid last year, like you said, one of the most embarrassing games I've ever seen. Like, it was just honestly disgusting seeing the players. It didn't look like they cared. So as fans, why should we? It was kind of asking that question. Villarreal, like you said, that was the 5-3 game. Was that right? Yeah. That was.
They were up. Well, Barca were up, and then they conceded They conceded 4, I think.
Yeah. My friend had like a parlay on that game, and they just needed Barcelona. I felt so bad. I almost felt like I was on the field because that's how bad I felt. It was horrible. And that's I just think that Barca, the way that they played last season, it was just embarrassing, like you said, to watch. And I think the effort that they showed wasn't there. They just looked lost a lot of games. And yeah, like you said, it took them 3 months to win a game by more than 1 goal. I remember Lamine Yamal was the guy that scored the 2-0. I think it was against it was in the Supercopa semifinal, right? Against
Osasuna.
Osasuna, yes. And
Lewandowski
we were celebrating.
Lewandowski and Lamine scored actually.
Yes,
That was actually, not to cut you off, but that was the first game. That was the game that broke the curse of not beating a team by over 1 goal.
And we were celebrating like crazy. Yes, and we were like, wow, I can't believe it. It's actually took us so many games to win it. And that's not the standard that Barca should be at. And with all the talent that they have at their disposal, it's inexcusable to be celebrating winning by a goal, more than 1 goal. So yeah, I'm in agreement with all of that. I think Barca, they can definitely compete against a lot of the teams in the world. And I'm excited with the way that Hansi Flick can set this team up. I think he does have a lot of talent at his disposal. I think at the beginning of the season, there are going to be some players out with injuries, but I still think they can go into the season, really compete against anyone. If they get more than 90 points in La Liga, I would love to see that. I think, and they're definitely more than capable of doing that. In the Champions League, I think they can get to the quarterfinals, the semifinals. And then also in the Copa del Rey, I think going 1v1 against any team in Spain, I think they can compete against them. So it's really up to themselves if they want to win a trophy next season and if Hansi Flick can set the team up and get the best out of the players. But yeah, man, well, thank you so much our time is kind of running out. Like we said, we don't have the Zoom premium. I got the upgrade button right there. So yeah, we've got 2 minutes left. So Michi, as always, man, thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate it. And please, if you haven't already, subscribe to his channel. He makes such great content. Honestly, the tier list, all the Barca news, it's just great to watch, to be honest. I really don't keep up with that many Barca creators. Unfortunately, I feel bad saying that. But for you, man, I do watch your videos. Like, they're all great. So please check him out if you don't know him already. And Michi, thank you again, man. I really appreciate it.
Nah, bro. Thank you so much for having me on. It's been a pleasure, and this will happen again. I promise you it will.
For sure.
You may not know it yet, but it's gonna happen again.
Oh yeah, again. As long as you got the Venmos right, and then we're good.
Yeah, I got it. You got. If it gets declined, then we'll just delete the episode.
I'm kidding. No, man. It's been a pleasure. Definitely so excited to do it again, and there's going to be so much Barca content to talk about it this season, and Hansi Flick's first year in charge. So yes, I'm sure on my channel you would definitely see Michi again. It would be a pleasure to have you. So thank you again, man.
Thanks, Gibson.
All right,
Appreciate you, bro.
everyone. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you very much for watching. See you all later. Peace.